All right, hello there, and welcome to episode 18 of the From a Certain Point of View podcast. I'm Josh,
And I am Adam.
and once again, we're here to bring you Star Wars news, reviews, and points of view. And Adam, what have you been up to in Star Wars this week?
A lot of books. So this is what happened to me this week. I think I've talked about this on the show before, but I use a library membership to do a lot of my Star Wars reading and audiobook listening. And what happened this week is that my waiting list blew up and like everything came to me at once. So
Nice.
the way it works, I have a membership at a Pittsburgh library, and it's really nice. I mean, it's totally free, and I can get any Star Wars audiobook and ebook sent right from my home. I don't have to go to Pittsburgh to get it. I just have to fire up my tablet, and it's there. But it kind of works like a regular library does with a physical copy. So there's only so many copies available, and if everyone is reading those at the time, then you'd have to get yourself on a waiting list. So I try to plan these so that if I'm on a waiting list for one that's like maybe 3 weeks long, then I'll join one that's maybe like 6 weeks or 7 weeks long, to kind of stagger them a bit. But you know, people can return these at any time, and if they read it in 3 days, then they're done. Then they can just return it, and then your wait list isn't that long. So that must have happened because I got like 4 books at once to read in 3 weeks, and I'm like freaking out a bit. So I'm working on. I was working on Phasma, and I took a little break from Phasma, and now I'm working through Thrawn alliances, the one with him and Vader. So that's the second book
Mm-hmm.
of that current run of Thrawn novels. So honestly, that's pretty much my Star Wars week. I haven't even got a chance to watch Clone Wars yet. So mainly digging myself out of a book hole. So
Well, it sounds like that'll help you with your canon catch up that you've been doing at least. But
yeah, if I can get through all of them.
right. How long do you have a certain amount of time to read them, or
3 weeks.
3 weeks? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
For me, it hasn't been a super busy week in Star Wars. I mean, I tuned in. I think it must have been Monday night for the
Yes.
with you for the reveal of Project Luminous that we're going to talk about in our news segment today,
Yeah.
which got me really hyped and really excited, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you about that. I did watch the Clone Wars last night, and I did continue reading Force Collector. As I've said before, I'm a very slow reader, so I'm about 75% through. But I'm thinking, I'll have a full review of that one next week, and I'll try to keep it spoiler free. So
Cool.
that's what I've been up to this week.
Cool. So, like you mentioned, we have some news this week, and most of the news is going to be Project Luminous. We're going to break that beast down for y'all. And then our second segment after that, we're going to talk with Sean from the MRC Tech channel. He does a podcast called Star Wars by MRC Tech, and we had him on. We are talking a lot about books and comics a little bit too, and mainly. If you haven't read Star Wars books yet, and you're thinking about jumping in, this might be the podcast segment that you should listen to. So it's a good chat. We had a lot of fun. We talked live on Monday night, recorded that live on Monday night, and then we hung out and covered the Project Luminous news. So it was a fun night with Sean.
It sure was. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that with you guys, and looking
Yeah.
forward to talking more about it. And we also had a poll this week that was put out
Yes.
on Twitter about the release of Rise of Skywalker, and in what form would you watch it or purchase the film when it comes out. We had 4 options. It was digital copy, physical copy, the Saga box set, or waiting for Disney Plus. And the results came in this way. The digital copy got 13% of the vote. That comes out a little earlier on March 17th. The physical copy won with 50% of the vote, which comes out on the 31st. And the Skywalker Saga box set, 13%. And then Waiting for Disney Plus got 24% of the vote. So it seems like at least most of those who voted are going to pick up the physical copy. And
I'm surprised how high the Disney Plus one was.
yeah, it was a little higher than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not sure what I'm going to do. My wife, I'd say about a year ago or so, got us a membership to the Disney Movie Club, and I'm still debating what the benefits of that are. I mean, we did get a few movies right off the bat for basically a dollar.
Yeah, I think that's the main benefit. I've done that twice
Yeah.
now. Like I've done it and then canceled and then done it again. And
Right. The person I talked to yesterday did inform me that if I pre-ordered The Rise of Skywalker, I would get it on release day sent to my house. So
yeah,
I might go with that option.
yeah, they're pretty good with that. And then I know
Mhm.
I've gotten some like art prints.
Yeah, there's a lithograph
them,
included with it and everything, which is nice.
Yeah,
So.
I got a stormtrooper, like a Rogue One thing from them one time. It's kind of neat. I think what's most. How many votes did we get in that poll, by the way?
There was only like 8 votes, I think, this week. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that. Would you say digital got? Was it like 13% or something like that?
13%.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if more people responded, I'm curious to see what the result would have been. But
yeah.
Anyhow, I think we are ready to head into our news segment this week.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
Okay, so our first article this week comes from Star Wars Newsnet, and Giancarlo Esposito teased some exciting news about Mandalorian Season 2 at Fan Expo Vancouver, and his quote was, "The prop guys are wondering about me because I was in a bit of a commotion and a bit of a struggle with someone else, which I'm hoping you will enjoy when you see it. Major, epic lightsaber action happening on this show." And I should mention that I'm the only character in the first season who was able to be honored with having the lightsaber. So it feels wonderful. So Adam, what's your reaction to this major epic lightsaber action happening in The Mandalorian? Because that's not something I necessarily would have expected. Do you think he's talking about just him using the saber or him going up against, somebody else with a saber? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it sounds like someone else with a saber because he says that he was only one in the first season.
Right.
To get a lightsaber. So
Mm-hmm.
probably it sounds like someone else, I think. So
yeah, could be. So yeah, well, I think that gets me even more excited for season 2 of The Mandalorian, seeing what that might be. Because again, I wasn't expecting lightsabers in this series, so it could be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Moving on to our second article this week, we have the working title of the Kenobi series was released, and this again also comes from Star Wars Newsnet, and the working title is Pilgrim. Now we know with working titles of any movie, it doesn't always indicate anything necessarily, but Adam, did you have any thoughts on the working title for Kenobi?
I'm glad it's a working title.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to actually be called Pilgrim. So
not thrilled by Pilgrim, but
right.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a working title, so I wouldn't expect that one to. I wouldn't expect it to make it to the final title card, and Disney Plus will say that.
Right. Yeah. So this is just a working title. It could have some meaning, might not have any meaning at all. Maybe he himself is kind of a pilgrim, or I don't know if he'll be making a pilgrimage to any other planets in the show, or if he'll be kind of secluded on Tatooine the whole time. We'll have to see. So
yeah.
And our next news article is concerning the Battlefront 2 recent update. There was an Age of Rebellion update, so we're seeing some co-op action in some of the original trilogy planets or Rebellion Age planets,
Yep.
and some other updates. You have an Ewok hunter as a character that you can play as, and there was another character too. Adam, do you know what that one was?
Uh,
I'll have to
I
open
can't. I
this up.
can't remember. I haven't even had a chance to play it yet. I downloaded the update, installed it, but I didn't get a chance to fire it up. So
Yeah, it was an ISB agent for the
okay.
Galactic Empire joining the ranks.
Got it.
So yeah, I didn't get to play it yet. I downloaded the update and everything, and I haven't played any co-op yet. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if what your thoughts are on the co-op, if
I
you've
love
played
co-op.
that at all.
I prefer
Okay.
co-op.
Yeah. How does co-op work exactly?
It's mainly you and 3 other humans against AI.
It's AI. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there certain
and
like, is it just like you just have to like kill the opponent, or are there objectives and
it's
things like that?
mainly like the multiplayer modes,
Okay.
except for the opposing team, and all your other teammates are all AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically you 4 against the whole team of AI. So you're mainly doing like the multiplayer modes.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm most interested in is jumping in there and doing the co-op. On
Co-op
the planet.
is the way to go, especially if you're looking for XP on like double,
Right.
triple XP weekends, because it gives you stupid amounts of XP.
Nice, but yeah, we have some of the planets featured. We have Yavin, Death Star 2, Endor, Hoth, Tatooine, specifically Mos Eisley, the Kessel, and Jabba's Palace. So those are the places you can go in the co-op mode. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to jump on there. I haven't played Battlefront in a while, so this gives me a reason to do that. And it's nice that they're keeping this game fresh and still updating it after. I mean, I think it was released back in like what? 2017.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think it was right around The Last Jedi.
It might have been 17.
Yeah, and they're still keeping it going here in 2020, so good stuff. And now we're ready to jump into our main news topic this week, which was that Project Luminous was revealed as the High Republic, and we've got a lot of stuff here that we can talk about. Adam,
yeah.
I'll let you get started. I know you're excited about the High Republic.
I am very excited about this.
Yeah.
So Monday night, probably around 10:30 Eastern, 10:30 our time. One of the things I was surprised about initially, just to say this, I don't know why there wasn't a live stream of this.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it would have been to just go on YouTube or something like that and hit the go live button. Ended up refreshing Twitter 1,000 times that night.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, Project Luminous is the High Republic, and that's kind of what it's been rumored as for the last couple months. We've gotten some of those tidbit drops in comics and well, mainly comics, I guess. But actually, even before they went live, Random House dropped a cover of their main adult novel in this first wave of stuff. And so we found out around 7:00 our time.
Oops.
Yeah. They even put it up for pre-order early, so it was there. It was definitely real. But we found out it was called Light of the Jedi, and that's written by Charles Soule. And Charles Soule has been a mainstay in the comics for a number of years now. So to see him switch over and write a full novel, that's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, same here. I'm definitely excited to read a novel by him. Given that I've enjoyed the comics he's written very much.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a little bit of a plot synopsis for Light of the Jedi. We'll just start there. That's coming from Del Rey, and that's going to launch on. It's going to become available on August 25th this year. So we've got about a little less than 6 months to go to wait for Light of the Jedi and the High Republic. What we have as far as story goes, this is set about 200 years before the events of Phantom Menace. So we're going to be covering that space of time, which actually hasn't been touched ever before in Star Wars, even in Legends. This is a brand new era, so this is pretty exciting for me, and I think it's pretty smart too. It gives them a brand new space of time to explore that they don't have to worry about being compared to what was done before. I think eventually they will do Old Republic. They'll go even farther back, but for right now, it gives them some separation to explore a brand new era of time that they don't have to, like I said before, they don't have to worry about readers saying, "Well, this isn't how this happened in years ago. This isn't the story I'm used to." They can just tell their own story. Great, brand new characters. There's the potential for crossover with a few characters, and mainly Yoda is the one that gets mentioned, but there's also Yaddle. It's possible for a baby Chewie to show up at some point, and I wonder about that, but it's totally possible. Because we're only 200 years here, so.
The question is, can baby Chewie compete with baby Yoda? That's really the question.
Yeah, I guess. So yeah, Light of the Jedi, and I actually do have a little bit of a synopsis here.
Yeah, I'd say Light of the Jedi is probably the one I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna
see
that event that I think the event that is the catalyst for all of this is going to happen here. So.
Yeah, so this is a quick synopsis here. So 200 years before the events of Star Wars The Phantom Menace, in the area of the glorious High Republic, the noble and wise Jedi Knights must face a frightening threat to themselves, the galaxy, and the Force itself. One of the things they talked about during this reveal event was something called the Great Disaster?
The Great Disaster, yes.
Yeah, it sounds like that event's going to be covered in Charles Soule's novel. It sounds like that's going to happen towards the beginning of this novel, and then his story seems like it's going to be how the Jedi initially respond to that disaster.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
So, Light of the Jedi, like I said, that's our first High Republic story. That's going to happen on August 25th. We also got 2 young adult novels, which I'm actually equally excited about both of these. The first let's talk about is Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. Claudia Gray coming back to young adult Star Wars novels. First of all, I love this cover. This cover has it's a younger Jedi and a younger, I'm not sure what I'd call her in the background there, because, we don't have a Republic army. I don't know if she's a Jedi herself, but she's holding a thermal detonator. So I'm not quite sure what she might be. If she'd be like a smuggler or something like that. Maybe a pirate. I love this cover mainly because this cover looks so EU to me.
Yeah, it does, for sure.
It really brings back shades of some of the classic covers back then. Just the art in that cover just pulls me right in. Like I'm ready for that book, like right now.
Yeah, a lot of the cover art looks just great, and I just love the look that they're going for in the High Republic. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see this.
As far as the art and the cover goes, even back to Light of the Jedi, it has this very 50s, 60s sci-fi vibe to me. Because of I think mainly like the robes that they wear, that the Jedi are wearing. Some of the character designs just feels very golden age of sci-fi.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to get
almost the fantasy as well.
Yeah, and we're going to get the golden age of the Jedi here, which I'm very excited about to see. Ever since Attack of the Clones, I've wanted to see multiple Jedi kind of in action. I mean, I'm going to have to read it and imagine it, unless at some point down the line they turn it into, a series or a movie or something like that. But.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't really talk enough about this cover, actually, now that I'm looking at it again, because I love this cover. This is beautiful cover art. But we have a blonde female Jedi that seems to be taking the lead here. Her name is Avar Kriss. In the back left, there's a Jedi Wookiee, which is awesome, and we don't see that.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't see that too often. I find it interesting that so many people say that that's the first. It's like, no, maybe you should watch Clone Wars again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so his name is Buryaga Agaburi, I believe. It's an interesting name.
Yeah.
We have a male Jedi with a blue lightsaber immediately to the right of Avar Kriss, and I don't believe he's been named yet. And then in the far right hand corner, there's I don't know what that species is. It looks like a Twi'lek, but then it doesn't. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But he actually has a yellow lightsaber. So that's cool.
Yeah, and speaking of the lightsabers, I think, again, we're going to get more insight into maybe what the different lightsaber colors mean and seeing different styles of lightsaber and those types of things in the High Republic. So.
Buryaga has a cross guard on his, which is cool. Not a cross guard like Kylo Ren's, where the arms or whatever they'd be called are also mini tiny lightsabers. His is just metal.
Yeah.
So very cool looking. And then on the top right corner above the characters, kind of far off in the distance, there's a space station. And if you've read Star Wars #2, the new comic from the new comic series, it seems like that's Project Starlight, the space station. So.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of space station than we're used to, and I'm glad it's not a Death Star type space station.
Did
it has
you see
unique look and
Well, maybe not too unique. Did you see some of the comparisons of that to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant?
No, I didn't actually.
Because that spire going up looks very familiar to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Now that we've talked about that the whole way through, let's go back to Into the Dark. So I have a synopsis for you here as well. This one's coming from Disney Books, and we have a date for this is October 13th, so we'll have a couple months in between there. Padawan Wreath Silas, and that should be the male with the green Jedi, the male Jedi with the green lightsaber on the cover. He's a 16-year-old Jedi, and he's being sent from the cosmopolitan galactic capital of Coruscant. That's a mouthful. To the undeveloped frontier, and he couldn't be less happy about it. He'd rather stay at the Jedi Temple studying the archives. But when the ship he's traveling on is knocked out of hyperspace in a galactic-wide disaster, Wreath finds himself at the center of the action. The Jedi and their traveling companions find refuge on what appears to be an abandoned space station. But then strange things start happening, leading the Jedi to investigate the truth behind the mysterious station, a truth that could end in tragedy.
It's very intriguing. I love the fact that at least both of these first two novels we're talking about kind of are overlapping a little bit in terms of this event that's happening, this disaster, and kind of maybe different characters having to deal with that event. So I think I love the connectivity here.
Yeah, for sure. So our next novel is another young adult novel, and that's A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. And I gotta be honest, I'm not familiar with Justina Ireland's work. And
the name is familiar, but I'm not sure what she's written exactly.
Yeah. So I can tell you what she will be writing, and that's called A Test of Courage. And
Indeed.
That cover looks very cool. It's an animated style cover. Kind of looks a little bit Resistance-esque in its art, but also calls shade. There's a few shades of some other Star Wars animated stuff as well. We have a green-skinned female Jedi on the front. She's wielding, it looks like a yellow lightsaber. I would imagine. Color is kind of a little weird on that one.
It's hard to tell.
Could also even be purple, because it's hard to tell, like you said. But some of the atmospheric effects around her make it a little bit hard to tell what that is. I think it could actually maybe be purple, but we'll see. And then behind her we have a male. It looks like a blonde male Jedi with a cape and everything like that. So he has a blue lightsaber, and then a little group of three. They look younger. There's two younger humans and then a droid.
Yeah, this looks like it's obviously with the style of the animation and everything. It looks like it's geared more towards the younger crowd, possibly. But that won't prevent me from reading it because I watch it. I watched all of the animated shows and everything as well. So yeah.
Synopsis on this one: when a transport ship is abruptly kicked out of hyperspace as part of the galaxy-wide disaster, newly minted teen Jedi Vernestra Rowe, guessing on some of that pronunciation there, a young Padawan, an audacious tech kid, and the son of an ambassador. So I'm guessing those are those two children that we see in the back part of that cover. So they are an audacious tech kid, the son of an ambassador. They're stranded on a jungle moon where they must work together to survive both the dangerous terrain and a hidden danger lurking in the shadows.
As I was looking at this, it says actually that this is a middle school novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dropping September 8th, and age range on that one is 8 to 12.
So it looks like they're trying to target a wide audience here with these different publications, which is definitely smart.
Our next title is going to be Star Wars: The High Republic, and that's Marvel comic series, simply titled The High Republic. The cover on here, I believe I read somewhere that that's actually a variant edition of the cover.
Okay.
But that shows off what appears to be some of the bad guys here, which are called Nihil, and that's spelled Nihil. If you look up the word Nihil, you're going to find that means someone who doesn't believe in anything. Okay.
Okay. So they don't believe in the Force, maybe, or they.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe,
maybe.
We're just assuming here and speculating.
Just kind of, just kind of.
Maybe
guessing.
they're trying to take the Force away from the Jedi somehow, or something like that. If that's even possible.
I have ideas. I think that they might be Force users, and I think that they might just be. I think that they might not believe in any type of rules or any type of boundaries or anything. They just don't.
They don't subscribe to the Jedi way or the Sith way. Just maybe they're just straight Force users type of thing.
Right,
that makes sense.
And I don't think that they have any boundaries to how they'll use the Force either.
Right.
So maybe this might be something like that.
That could be cool.
Because one of the things that was discussed here when they gave this whole reveal is one of the story elements that interested them most was, I think it was Cavan Scott had asked, what scares the Jedi?
Yep.
And I think maybe a group of Force wielding people who just don't care about anything. I think that could be scary. That
could be, because they're probably hard to predict and unpredictable. Kind of, you don't know, because they don't believe in anything necessarily.
Right.
The only other thing I thought of when that question was posed, and I love the idea of making your villain being something that scares the Jedi. I go back to the conversation that Palpatine had with Anakin in Episode 3, and talking about the Jedi are afraid of losing their power. That's what I keep coming back to. Like, are they somehow going to lose their power, possibly? I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it'll be something completely different. And like we're talking about these cataclysmic events. It seems to have like physical ramifications across the galaxy because
Right.
so far in 2 of the novels we've talked about, ships are getting knocked out of hyperspace during this. So it seems almost like I don't know, maybe something went supernova or something,
Maybe.
kind of sent shockwaves throughout the entire galaxy, or I don't know, interesting stuff. I'm very excited to see how that works out.
Same here.
But Marvel's comic series is actually written by Cavan Scott.
Nice.
Who we just mentioned, and that one actually takes place on the space station, the Starlight Beacon space station. Mostly takes place there, so I think we'll get some other scenes or some other things like that. But it's mostly takes place on the space station, which I think is an interesting idea. Kind of calls back to, for me, it reminds me of like a Star Trek, like a Deep Space Nine or something like that, which was mostly on the space station. So it's definitely interested in checking that one out.
Sure.
I was a little surprised by like I was expecting obviously Charles Soule to do the comic because we heard that Marvel was part of this.
Yeah. They threw us a curveball.
Cavan Scott actually jumping into the to the comics realm here with Marvel, and then Daniel Jose Elder, who wrote Last Shot, the Han novel. He's actually taking a comic as well. He's doing the other comic from IDW. IDW's comics are a little more geared to the younger audience as well. So his will be called The High Republic Adventures. The cover for that seems to show a people are speculating that that's a Lasat on the left. Farzala, I believe his name is, and another darker skinned Jedi on the right. You think that looks like a Lasat?
If I, I'm not really good with the alien species names. I mean, I know a few here and there.
Zeb rebels.
Yeah, that kind of that could be. I can see that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, so we don't have any information really about their names, other than about what they are. I mean, we have their names. Like I said, that Lasat looks like it's Farzala, if I'm reading that right.
Yeah,
and then
your guess is better than mine on that one.
And then on the right, the female, I believe, is Luca, but I'm not sure if that's an L or a C. So
it's kind of hard to tell.
It's either Lula or Luca, and I don't know which.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the IDW series, The High Republic Adventures.
Yes. So that rounds out all of the like current like phase 1.
Yeah, releases. That's the other thing I wanted to say is they mentioned flat out that this is phase 1, so this isn't going to wrap up in these 5 stories here. We're going to get more beyond this, and not only that, but there were other partnered publishers that they mentioned that haven't even been
announced
yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have those here. One of them is Viz, who does a lot of manga. I'm not usually a huge manga fan, but I think as I was looking through all this news, the one thought that kept coming into my head is I think I'm going to get all of these things. If there was a manga that tied into this, I would definitely jump in and buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the approach they're taking here is I think it's going to feel like you need to read all of these to get the whole story because it's all connected, which I think is something the fans really have been asking for, and they're listening.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So I mentioned Viz. Titan Comics is another one. I had to look some of these up. Titan does. So all of these have partnered with Star Wars at some point in the past. Titan has done graphic novels, which I think would be super interesting if we got like this longer form graphic novel.
For sure.
And they've also done some other. They've worked with Star Wars to do some magazines and other publications. So one of the things that they've done is, I think they call them book scenes or something like that. It's kind of a combination between magazines and a book, where they do some like longer form interviews and longer form articles, but could get some like short stories in that form.
Yeah,
because Star Wars has definitely done short stories released through magazines in the past. Abrams is on there. That's that round logo with an A in the middle. Abrams actually does the art of books. So, recently we had the art of Rise of Skywalker that had a lot of the concept art. And just saying with this stuff, this concept art was really cool looking.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them releasing a whole art of the High Republic. I mean, I think they really dove into the artwork and treated it as if it was going to be a film, and just really dove into that. So
yeah. B&M Books, which is Becker and Mayer, they do some of those. I kind of call them novelty books. If you've ever been to Barnes and Noble and you have those few aisles of stuff right up front, you have a lot of like the coffee table style books, I guess. They kind of do that. So they've done some Star Wars stuff before. There's a few Star Wars origami books out there, like the kind of like the paper crafting books.
Yeah, I've seen those before.
Yeah.
Book fairs at my elementary school and stuff like that.
Yeah. So now I wonder if we get, they do that type of stuff. So I wonder if we might get something like that from them. DK Books is on there as well. And they've done Star Wars kind of visual dictionary stuff. So I'd be 100% behind getting a Star Wars visual dictionary for the High Republic. Because once again, some of this art was amazing, and if I could I would probably keep something like that by me as I'm reading every one of these books.
Something you can kind of reference and look at.
And then Inside Editions is on there as well. Most recently, they did The Secrets of the Jedi, which was a reference book. And they've also done... Have you ever seen those owner's manual books?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, so there's... I know there's one for the Falcon, and I think one for X-Wing, and I don't know if there's any others, but they kind of go through like the whole ship. And
the ins and outs of the ship and everything. Yeah.
So another reference style book, kind of like the visual dictionary. So, so there's some very interesting avenues that could be explored here. I keep going back to Titan Comics, and I would love a graphic novel. Like, I think their work with them would probably lean more towards that magazine range. But man, if I could get like a longer form comic or that, that's what I'm kind of dreaming of, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Right, and the artwork is already so beautiful, and to use that in the form of a graphic novel, I think would be outstanding.
Yeah. So, for the most part, that really wraps up, I think, the main stuff about Project Luminous. We'll drop some links in the show notes and things like that if you guys haven't seen this cover art, concept art, all that other stuff. You can check this out because there's some really beautiful stuff here.
And one thing I'd really highly recommend checking out is on the Star Wars YouTube channel. They have a video breaking down the High Republic, and
I'll throw that in.
And what I love so much about that was
you're talking about that 4-minute trailer.
Yeah, the 4-minute trailer
Yeah.
for the High Republic, and I just love the approach they took on this. That they gathered all these writers and the story group at Skywalker Ranch, and they sat down.
Hmm.
They had a whiteboard. They were like, "What does Star Wars mean to you?
Yeah, yeah.
What scares the Jedi?" Starting with these broad questions, and really creating a whole new space and a blank slate for these writers who we've talked about have been very much bound to the parameters of what was happening in the trilogy
Hmm.
movies and everything, but now they kind of have this blank slate to tell stories that are connected at the height of the Jedi. And I'm really excited with this approach, and again, I think it's going to feel like you need to read all of it to it's kind of going to feel like the Marvel universe, but in Star Wars and in publication, and hopefully at some point
Yeah.
expanding.
Right.
And I'm wondering if a series of films are going to be made in this era, or if it's going to be, or if they're going to go to the Old Republic for the movies and keep this as a separate thing. That's the only question that's kind of left on my mind
Yeah.
is where it's going to go in the future.
I could see that
But
either way.
yeah.
And I wouldn't be upset either way. Like, I've been really waiting for a major publication initiative, and
Mm-hmm. This is it.
If and if this ended up being purely publication, I'd be totally happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
And
But you could expand it if you wanted to,
yeah, and I haven't been quiet about how I've felt about some of the new canon books. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's been some very good new canon books, and like I don't think that they've been necessarily bad in any respect.
No.
But my main criticism is that they've never felt like they had a major
Significant.
implication.
Like
Yeah.
really important. Yeah, this is gonna. I already feel like this is gonna
Yeah.
feel important. And
Like,
feel
even the
essential.
Aftermath trilogy to me never felt like it majorly impacted anything else. You know, and then at the Battle
Exactly.
of Jakku, and that had all this other stuff.
Mhm.
Which, yeah, those are big events, but for me, it never felt like it really had this huge impact on stuff.
Yeah,
and-
I'm with you 100% on that. I agree.
Yeah, and this whole series, I mean, it sounds like it starts with this major event.
Major event
That
right off
has-
the top.
Yep, that has
Yeah.
galactic implications, and I really can't wait to see how these characters respond to that. You know, this kind of, they said that this event, whatever it is, opens up the chance for heroes to rise,
Mhm.
and I love that idea.
Yeah.
I can't wait for
Same
that. The other thing I want to touch on real quick is that they also mentioned that this is kind of like Star Wars mixed with Arthurian legend,
Mhm.
where this is like the Knights of the Round Table style.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and you see that in some of the art here, because some of the art shows these very regal robes that they wear, and they were very careful to say that these are temple garb. So, you know, they have these like white and gold trimmed robes, and you know, that's what they wear around the temple. Very ornate, very how do I want to put this? Like, it feels more religious, I guess.
It's kind of
You know?
regal, religious. Yeah.
Yeah, and
You know, and it's probably what they wear to their council meetings and whatnot.
Right.
Then when they're in action, maybe, you know, it's a little different. But,
Well, yeah. Then they had they had a separate concept art image that showed, you know, they had their field attire, or I forget how they say it. You know, what they do wear out when they're not in the temple.
Mhm.
So. Very different styles there, and and that's interesting to me, because, you know, later in the prequels we don't really see that they have that separation between what they wear out in the field versus what they wear in the temple. You know, they have their robes, but, you know,
Yep.
it's very different by that point. So
So yeah, lots of stuff to look forward to with the High Republic for sure.
yeah. So are you jumping into everything? Are you buying it all, or do you have something you're more excited for?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to put this out in the poll of what you want to see the most, but you know, or what you want to read the most, I guess. And for me, it's definitely Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark are the two that I'm most excited
Okay.
about.
Yeah.
Just because I love the novels and the young adult novels. If I get the opportunity to, I'll dive into the comic and and stuff like that. But I'd like to read it all if I have the time and the money and the opportunity.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark are definitely um, at the forefront for me.
Yeah, the only one I'm maybe a little on the fence about is the High Republic Adventures. Just
Mm-hmm.
having read a little bit of the IDW stuff, it's good. It's just not for me.
Sure.
But again, I'm very excited for this whole thing, and I kind of want to jump into it all and
Mm-hmm.
experience the
Yeah.
whole thing. From beginning to end. It's been a long time, I feel, since I've gotten a Star Wars series like this, and I just want to jump in and enjoy it for everything that it is. So,
No doubt. No doubt.
next, like we mentioned up front, we have a segment with Sean from the MRC Tech, and we're going to be talking more books. This is a book week from a certain point of
Yes.
view. So if you haven't read any of the Star Wars stuff, and maybe after hearing Project Luminous, you're thinking maybe I should, even though you don't have to, because it doesn't seem like any of this ties in with any of the other stuff. But if you're seeing this and you're thinking, man, this looks interesting, there's a lot of cool stuff here, there is. And if you don't know where to start, this next segment is going to be for you.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
One awesome thing about Star Wars as a whole is that the story never stops at the movies, not even TV shows. Star Wars has a wealth, years of books and comics and even more. And one of the things I hear every once in a while is someone that says, I see all this stuff, but I have no idea where to start. It can be, let's admit it, it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're just jumping in. So we wanted to take a few minutes, and we wanted to give some of our recommendations. If you're just looking to get into Star Wars books or comics, we wanted to kind of give you a bit of a jumping in point. So, we have invited Sean from the MRC Tech, who also does an awesome Star Wars podcast called Star Wars by the MRC Tech. And we wanted to have a little roundtable discussion here with Sean and Josh and myself. And we want to get you started on Star Wars books. So, welcome, Sean. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the podcast, a little bit about you, where you're from, that type of stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Josh and Adam, for having me on your wonderful podcast. Wonderful content coming down the lines. The podcast stemmed from my love for Star Wars in terms of I wanted to get this thought out to the ether because my family was quite frankly done with listening to my little tidbits of details that I would tell them about different Star Wars stories. And I said, there must be people that want to listen to me out there. And I see it as like an archival sort of experience to just get these thoughts out there. I'm a full-time teacher, so talking for me is super easy. Planning out these little podcasts, although time consuming, sort of just gives me some nice energy. And then just the complete connection to other people around, the world. People, I think I connected with someone in Brazil on Twitch, and then connecting with you guys over in Pittsburgh is just a pretty amazing thing. The internet is so fascinating and terrifying at the same time. And so this podcast was really just born of someone asking me to do it, and then kind of thinking about it, and then jumping in, and then learning all about the audio production of it, and then completely investing time and money and effort into trying to make
Yeah.
it as best as possible. Because I know I've listened to different podcasts, and I sort of 30 seconds, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to keep this going, just because I know there might be better stuff out there. And I hate to say that about other people's podcasts, but I think it's important to have a good base of a foundation for production. And then the content will follow and the people will come if you network enough. And it's been really wonderful. And I'm a variety Star Wars show. As you can tell, my name is so generic that I just want it to be called Star Wars. It has nothing to do with any one movie, book, novel, comic. I kind of take what I have and bring it into the fold. And whatever's new and hot or old and not, whatever it is, I like to talk about it and just kind of go with the flow. And we are now in the official unknown regions of Star Wars lore. We have no idea where it's going because the quote unquote saga is over. And I'm looking forward to talking about it. So thanks, Josh and Adam, for having me on the show. And I'm looking forward to talking little novels tonight.
Yeah, awesome
Yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely. We're really glad to have you.
So, why don't you go ahead and kick us off, Sean? Where would you tell someone who comes to you and says, I want to read a Star Wars book, or I want to read a Star Wars comic, but man, I have no idea what one to pick up first?
Yeah,
What do
so
you tell
all of my choices stem from the novels. I'm just getting into the comics, so I won't comment too much on them tonight unless I sidebar with one of you. But I'm going to start with a book that recently came out by Claudia Gray called Master and Apprentice.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
reason I choose this is because, uh, 2000, the year 2000 is only 20 years ago. It's only 20 years ago. And that's
Right,
when
yeah.
The Phantom Menace came out. And the first two Jedi we see on screen is Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Yes.
And I think they're probably, Obi-Wan is definitely our very known, I'd say more known than a lot of the characters today with Clone Wars appearances, etc. And just seeing their relationship, I think if you've read Master and Apprentice and then watched Phantom Menace, you would get a completely different feel for their relationship. So everything top to bottom, between the questionability of a Jedi who sort of loses his way in this, sort of kind of says, Jedi aren't really all good. And then, just seeing how Qui-Gon goes through his change and how Obi-Wan gets to where he gets to toward like Revenge of the Sith area, all of this is sort of in this book. So I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but
I did.
it's a very
Yes.
good read.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I am a huge Claudia Gray fan. I feel she has written so many excellent Star Wars novels, and I think when you're considering, the overall timeline, starting with Master and Apprentice makes a whole lot of sense. And I would also say that if you're really into the lore of the Force and prophecy and those types of things, I think you'll get a lot out of this one as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention with that was the prophecies, and it's just,
Mhm.
it talks so much about Qui-Gon's affinity or interest in these prophecies that come up so often through the prequels, and like you said, I think that would just give a brand new perspective to to not only the overarching events of the prequels, but even just Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's relationship, which is in a much better place at the start of episode 1, but they've had some growing, and I think you would just appreciate those two that much more, having read Master and Apprentice. So that's a great choice.
For sure. For sure. And if you're prequel people, like I don't fall on one side of the fence or other, but
Mhm.
this is for you, for the
Yeah.
prequel people who love that era. This is a great stepping off point into that world.
Yes, I concur.
Absolutely, I love that choice.
Now, do you want to go book to book or do you want me to hit all three?
Let's do a round table. So let me shoot
Fair.
this over to
Go ahead, fire
Josh.
away.
And
Okay.
Josh, what's your selection?
Well, my thought process earlier in the day was going to Master and Apprentice, thinking about the timeline, but then I kind of shifted gears to where I actually started my journey with the Star Wars canon beyond the movies, and it was also a Claudia Gray novel. My favorite Star Wars novel at this point is Lost Stars, and I think that what Claudia Gray does so well here is she introduces new characters to this universe, to this galaxy, but puts these characters in situations that we're familiar with from the original trilogy, and it's kind of seeing these events from a different point of view. From the point of view of an Imperial, for example. And I just love how it then also leads ultimately to the Battle of Jakku. And so as we get close to the Force Awakens, seeing the aftermath of that battle on Jakku that Rey is kind of a scavenger of. So that's probably where I would start, would be with Lost Stars.
Nice. I purposely left that off my list. I knew you were going to jump
You
to
knew
that
I was
one.
going to take that one. You knew me
Yeah.
too well.
Yeah. But I was very seriously considering tossing that one on there. It's
Yeah, that's a sleeper, being as it's
oh
a
man.
young adult, right? It's not
Yeah.
Yeah,
considered a adult novel.
yeah,
Right.
I wrote about this in the blog a few weeks ago, but I did sleep on this initially. I did not
Mm.
read this initially, and I skipped it a few times, and I read a few of the others that popped up around. That was one of the Journey to Force Awakens novels, I believe, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think that must be how I came across it to begin with, because I was getting pumped for the Force Awakens and everything, and I must have come across it.
Yeah, so I did sleep on it, and I started reading some of the other ones, and I kept seeing this Lost Stars book, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm reading the summaries, and I'm like,
Right.
yeah, it's just I'm not sure if I'm looking for young adult right now. I do enjoy young
Mhm.
adult. I'm like, I don't know if I'm looking for young adult right now, or I don't know if I'm looking for a love story right now. But man, when I finally just broke down and said, "All right, fine, I'll check it out," blew me
Yeah,
away.
I
Me away.
fell for the advertising scheme of Journey to any movie. I was like, give it
Yeah.
outside of a children's book, like Chewie and the Porg's not interested, but
Right.
give it to me. I'm buying all of it. I don't care. I don't like all the books, but I'm like, you know what? We got to give props. These books are golden in this era of Star Wars. So I really did love Lost Stars, but it's, I think I read it back in 2015. So it's
Sure.
been a
Yeah.
while since I read it. So the
Mhm.
details are hazy outside of, two people on the opposite ends, and they
Mhm.
sort of end up being against each other. And really, it's a cool story. And if I remember all those details, that means it's stuck with me. So
Yes.
that's a good.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'll need to revisit that one at some point as well, because for me, it's been a while
Mhm.
also since I've read it.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I think it's on you now.
Yeah. So like I said, I started with Lost Stars, and then I kind of bounced around a little bit. I was like, well, first of all, I knew Josh was going to pick that one, so I was like, okay, let's set this one aside for a bit. I decided to go with the Force Awakens novelization.
Ooh.
Nice.
And the reason I start here is because this is kind of our newest generation of Star Wars movies. And if you've seen the movie, which I'm sure if you're interested in these books you probably have, I think it might be a really good starting point to kind of check out what a Star Wars book is all about without having to worry about diving into who are all these characters type thing. You don't have to worry about who Grand Admiral Thrawn is if you don't know who Grand Admiral Thrawn is. I thought it's a very well written adaptation. It's written by Alan Dean Foster. If I'm not mistaken, Alan Dean Foster wrote the novelization for A New Hope. But I would have to go back and check all that stuff. Anyway, he's done Star Wars novels before. A great writer. It was a very fun novelization adaptation of the movie. It gives you, like I said, a very easy way to test the waters for Star Wars books. So my first choice is the Force Awakens novelization by Alan Dean Foster.
I see. I was actually surprised by that, Adam. I had another one in mind that I thought you might go with, but maybe we'll get to that one eventually.
We might. And Alan Dean did write Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and I think that's what I was probably thinking of.
Actually, you are absolutely right.
Was I right on both
he
points?
Actually wrote Star Wars
Nice.
from the adventures of Luke Skywalker.
Okay, I thought so.
And
so.
Later,
See?
later dubbed to A New Hope to reflect the new title.
I know more than I thought I did.
So you were right, spot on. I got you on the Wikipedia check.
All right.
Nice.
So
Gotta love
I'm
the fact checkers.
I got the research coming down the screen pipeline.
Yes.
I love it.
So then to connect with that, I actually have something that connects to The Force Awakens, although I
Nice.
stayed away from the
Nice.
main novels. And I have, actually going back into young adult world,
Okay.
is the Greg Rucka Star Wars Before the Awakening. And this is a, I won't say it's short story, but it's 33%. separated between FN 2187, Rey herself, and Poe Dameron, and
Yeah, I
sort of just
remember that one. Yeah,
right, and sort of,
yeah.
and this was by the way, Journey to the Force Awakens. Completely dove right
Mhm.
in, bought everything off the shelf, and we learn about Rey, and this is the book that I was referencing on Twitter. That was like, yeah, but Rey knows how to do this because of this book, and then people were like, people don't read books, man, and I'm like, you're right. What do you want me to do about it? So like, we learned that Rey builds a pilot simulation computer thing in this book.
Okay.
We learned that
Hmm.
Finn became best friends with the guy he fought in Force Awakens with the when he had the lightsaber at Maz Kanata's castle.
Yeah, the one who calls him traitor, right?
Right, right. Like
Yeah.
they were
Yes.
Mhm.
BFFs, But I got a different flavor of Finn in this. Like he was like really a BA. Like he was a soldier. I never really got
Nice.
that feeling during the movies. I always felt like
Right.
he was sort of lost, and I maybe I'm reading him wrong, but
Maybe that's
this
why he
book,
keeps on yelling Ray, because he has to
yeah,
get
like
back. He has to. He's lost.
yeah, I
Mhm.
guess I
Ray,
don't know. And
Yeah.
then
where are you, Ray?
I can't tell you anything about Poe in this book because I honestly don't remember. So it must not have been an impact. But I did enjoy this book because it just gave you a little insight into the new characters before we get into the actual storyline. That way we could focus in on the storyline without having to question
Mhm.
all of the characters' decision making. So for me, Before the Awakening is sort of a key book to start with if you're going into the sequel trilogy.
I like it, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just along those lines, I guess the way I approached this was if you're, especially if you're somebody who, really enjoyed the sequel trilogy and are really still kind of caught up in this time period. Um, my thought line went from Lost Stars, and then it went to another Claudia Gray novel, Bloodline. Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's just another essential read. You get a lot about Leia in that one. You get sort of the beginnings of how the First Order came to be in a way, not directly, but kind of more indirectly. And I just think that it's another great Claudia Gray that I would jump into if I were, going to start and go back and start with the canon again.
Excellent.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Bloodline book a lot.
Yes.
I think it was heavy in politics.
Hmm.
It
Mhm.
sort of reminded me of a little Phantom Menace action. I love the scene with Leia wearing the black cape and the black dress after the scandalous reveal that
Right.
that Vader was her
Yeah.
father.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
like it dawned on me, I was like, wait a second. Does anybody actually know what happens after Return of the Jedi? Like not even the
No.
public has a
And
clue.
right.
And
Right.
they probably still think the Palpatine is alive somehow. They probably think Vader is alive. There's a myth, there's a legendary status to it.
Right.
And then somebody sabotages her political career. Literally, I mean, I think it was very reflective to our current political state,
Yeah.
Sure.
in
Sure.
the
Yeah.
US. So it sort of hit home with me, and I was like, wow, this is in a galaxy far, far away, but it's not really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think
Right.
I think just the fact that as audience members, we are aware of who that Leia's father is Darth Vader, but the galaxy isn't necessarily,
Mhm.
and this is a reveal for these people in this galaxy. So I just thought that was just an interesting take on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that covers the gamut of Claudia Gray novels, does it not?
Claudia Gray
It
hitting
should,
hard.
yeah.
I think it
And
does.
Claudia Gray's coming tonight in Luminous. We're gonna
Yes,
She
see how she
is.
say.
I know. So I think the moral of the story is if you pick up a Claudia Gray novel, it
You
should
can't
be
go
okay.
wrong.
Yeah.
You
It's a
can't go
home
wrong.
run. It's a
Yeah.
home run.
Yeah, I
For
can't
sure.
argue with that. I am gonna give a comic series to
Cool.
start with, and I'm actually gonna go with this, and I'll tie this all together in a few minutes. I'm gonna go with the current run of Star Wars novels. That's Volume 3 that just launched this. Was that late 2019 or 2020? I think it
Okay.
was 2020. So it's the
Mhm.
the most current volume of Star Wars novels. Starts with Star Wars #1, and it did launch in 2020. This kind of tells the story of what happened in between 5 and 6, episodes 5 and 6. So I'm sure if you're interested in Star Wars books, you've seen episodes 5 and 6 of the original Star Wars trilogy, and this gives you some backstory in there. What happened to Luke? How's he feeling after he learns about Vader being his father? What happens with Lando and Leia on the Falcon? How do they get from being how do they get from the events on Bespin to ending up in Jabba's palace on this undercover mission?
Mm-hmm.
This comic series is telling those stories, but it's also starting to tell some other stories as well. And I'm going to leave it there for now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Although I'm not familiar with comics, I am jumping all in on
Yeah.
this part of the story because one of the things that I always wondered was like, all right, cool, Luke knows how to force choke people. When that happened?
Yeah.
Tell me, when did he build his lightsaber?
Right.
When did all of these things happen, and how far down the line does it happen? So,
Yeah.
so far I think the number 3's coming out 311. If I'm
Yeah,
mistaken,
somewhere
I think it's
around
coming
there.
out
Somewhere
311.
around there. Yeah.
And the first 2 have been home runs. I'm really enjoying it. I like that it's
Yeah.
not coming out weekly because I can't afford it.
Exactly.
I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the monthly output, and it's just something to fill the gap right now
Right.
with Star Wars stuff. Yeah.
And the nice thing about this is comics can be even more overwhelming to jump into than novels, just because there's so many different volumes and things like that. The thing that I like about the Star Wars volumes here is I think that each of these volumes you can just jump into. I think they tell their own story. I don't think that they are tied into any other series too heavily where you need to read, like if you jump into a Marvel series, you're going to have to read a couple different volumes of a couple different stories to get the full story here. I think you can jump into the Star Wars the Star Wars comics in any volume, and I think you'll be okay. And I think they each tell their own story pretty well. But the other nice thing about jumping in here is that you're kind of caught up with everybody. Everyone's reading. We've only read 2 issues of this series so far, so you're only like 50 pages behind, to be honest.
Yeah, time's now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on into the comic world for sure.
Yeah. So I believe that brings us back to Sean.
Cool. Back into the novel realm. And again, if you didn't pick up on my theme, I had a prequels book, I had a sequels book, and now I have the end of the original trilogy's book. And that's literally a journey to Star Wars: The Force Awakens book. God damn it. I didn't even think about this. I picked 3 books based off and I just realized I picked the majority was Journey to the Force Awakens is Aftermath.
That was a yes.
Yeah,
but that was a
Wendig.
really fun series of the Journey to books,
man. I didn't know if I liked it, how fragmented it was, but every once in a while we got a peek under the curtain of what was happening in the galaxy on different worlds and in different places, and what was the political landscape here, and what were these people doing there, and then it would jump back into the main storyline, and I think they did a really great. I think he did a really great job at. First off, I think the first book trilogy outside of the Thrawn one,
right,
coming down the line, so he had to make this all happen in a short amount of time. I think, and man, I forget if it's a couple years after or maybe immediately after Return of the Jedi, but I was really intrigued by the state of the galaxy. What's going on? Like, just because the Death Star 2 blows up doesn't mean that things aren't in shambles. So just to see the Battle of Jakku and all of that, all of that involved. And again, read that back in 15, but probably have to read it again to give you more detail. But I just really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the trilogy, and it was something to look forward to. And unfortunately, I think Chuck Wendig got kicked from a comic series due to his comments on Twitter.
Yeah, he's not a quiet.
2 years ago.
He's not a quiet person. So
that happens sometimes. So maybe he'll come back down the line. But I really enjoyed Aftermath, and that sort of covers prequel, sequel, and original trilogy in a realm. Assuming you've all watched the movies.
I was, I was hoping one of you guys would pick up on Aftermath because I left it off, but I really didn't want to leave it off. And I wouldn't have
Yes.
left it off if it weren't for some other circumstances. But Josh, what's your
Yeah,
name?
same here. I was really close to including, Aftermath in there. My issue was, and why I left it off. Mine was I've only just recently completed the first of the three
Mm.
novels in that series.
Okay.
As I was gearing up for the Rise of Skywalker and everything, I wanted to jump back into the canon and
Mhm.
and read some of the things that I hadn't read before, and that was one of them. And so I completed the first book in the Aftermath trilogy, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the writing style or what, it was hard for me to get through that one, and
Mm.
I'm not really sure why, but I do want to give the second and third novels in that series a try here sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I do think that the trilogy as a whole picks up in the second and third books for sure.
yeah, yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
But if I were to go to my next choice, it would be in the world of comics, and I'm not a huge comic book reader, but this is one that I had to read, and I've really been enjoying it so far, and that's The Rise of Kylo Ren,
Mm.
Charles Soule, and we're on issue 3 out of 4 actually.
Mhm.
So I like that it's just 4 issues, and like you said, Adam, sometimes it can get a little overwhelming with the number of
Yeah.
issues that can be in a comic and everything. But I've really enjoyed this run. One of the most interesting things to me in the sequel trilogy, and one of the most interesting characters is Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. I've always wanted to know how he joined the Knights of Ren. How did he turn to the dark side exactly? How did that all happen? And this really dives into that, and I've really enjoyed it so far. And so this one was a must read for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've been covering
It's-
the Kylo Ren
yeah.
series on the
Mhm.
podcast, doing some readings of it, some analysis, and I'll be honest, the first one was great. The second one was good. I thought issue 3 was a clunker, and I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah,
where the story's going.
right.
I
Yeah.
was so excited. Everybody was so excited for the Knights of Ren, and then
Mhm.
we got a flashback sequence and then nothing for a whole movie, and then we had lots of standing and
Yeah.
big drums.
Yeah, they didn't do much
Nothing
of
else.
anything in the movie. Yeah.
Like, I would have loved to see them taking down Chewie. Like, we know Chewie's strong, but to see that scene of him just being incapacitated immediately would have sort of shown the strength of the Knights of Ren. Instead, it was probably cut from the floor there.
Right.
I'm not saying that the Kylo Ren series is bad. I'm just saying that I'm trying to figure out, like,
Yeah.
anything that flashes back to Luke with the Jedi Temple
Hmm.
and their interactions, during that time. I'm like, I'm drooling over it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that
And
was
then
my
I'm-
favorite part of this most recent one.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah,
great. But
yeah.
like, they humanized Ren, so now I'm like, it's Jeff Bridges. Like, I don't care. Because
Yeah.
he's got blue eyes. He's really good looking. He's got gray wavy hair, and it's just Jeff Bridges. That's all it
Right,
is.
right,
Like,
right.
I don't care about it. Or not. I think I'm thinking Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell is
okay.
more
Okay.
really what I'm looking for. But it's like, now he just looks like a normal person to me. So he's not this scary guy anymore. So,
Yeah, I can see
obviously,
that.
yeah, he's going to be cut down because he's got to
Obviously,
take over.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's happening. So, but how it happens, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, first off,
Yeah.
when I saw Snoke in his little hat in a garden, I laughed out loud, going, "What?" I think
Yeah,
I
was a
reacted
little
to it
weird.
live on the podcast. I was literally reading it live, and I was going, "What is this hippie doing in this weird garden-like area
The garden
in the
was
middle of the
interesting.
galaxy?" We are in Guardians of the Galaxy mode right now, and I love it. It was just so good to see all that kind of stuff.
I was definitely thrown a little bit off by
Oh, man.
thrown for a loop there just a little bit.
Oh,
But
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. So before I get my last one, do either of you have any more to add here? Like any honorable mentions, anything like that?
I did have one I wanted to mention. Would now be an okay time to
Yeah,
do
go
that?
for it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of, kind of going back to the conversation about the young adult novels, for some reason I must be a sucker for these things because I'm currently reading Force Collector,
Ooh.
which is on the journey to the Rise of Skywalker,
Uh-huh.
actually.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of tie-ins with planets that we visit, and it really ties the whole saga together in a way that I didn't expect. And we go to some even like a prequel planet, and I don't want to give out any spoilers in case anybody hasn't read it yet, but I'm just really enjoying Force Collector, and I would definitely I'm flying through it. It's I can't wait to read the next chapter. It's one of those ones that I'm having a hard time putting down. So that's when I know I found a book that I really enjoy. So
My man, I read that on a plane ride
hmm
to California. I was going on a
yeah,
work trip, and I was like, "Wait a second! All they did was put in the best hits of everything
yeah,
Star Wars in one book.
exactly.
I'm all in."
I love it. It is the best hits. I love it.
Everything is so convenient. It is
Uh,
super cool. Like, I want to be a 15-year-old person who passes out when they touch objects. Like, this is
exactly.
what I need in my life. And I
Exactly.
was all in
Nice.
on the Force Collector book. That gets high praise from me.
Yeah,
Nice.
man.
Oh man, that's
I'm
so
loving
good.
it.
I love that you love it. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Okay, cool. So I have one final one, and I'm gonna serve this as a transition of sorts. If you're looking to jump into Star Wars novels, Star Wars books, and you don't want to get bogged down by by all these other canon aspects, you don't want to get tripped up over what came before when. I think you might need a brand new era of Star Wars books, Star Wars storytelling, and so my last pick is Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, which was literally announced about an hour before we went
That's
live.
not fair.
That is not fair.
And I am going with that. That
Yeah, yeah.
is
It has potential. I'll say that.
yes. So yeah, I think that's a great place to start, and I think that gets like we mentioned with the Star Wars comic. I think that gets you into a place where you are, step in step with everyone else. Everyone else reading the same book, talking about the same story. You're just starting with everybody else. You're not behind at all. I think it's a great time to do that. That book drops in August of this year, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And it's a High Republic novel, so it seems like High Republic is definitely the next era of Star Wars storytelling, and I think it's a great place to start. It gives you a brand new story to talk about. So
Yeah, and it's obviously they've been teasing High Republic and other
Yep.
Forms of media here,
which is why I mentioned that Star Wars volume, because they've talked about it.
Yeah.
in that volume of comics as well.
So I am looking on Twitter here.
Yeah, I've been
just
refreshing.
speaking of Project Luminous, and it says they're starting late apparently.
Nice.
Cool.
So
Perfect.
yeah.
Cool.
Perfect. Well, I'll fill some time. One of the books that I just recently finished off was Delilah S. Dawson's Black Spire.
I haven't checked that one out yet.
I won't go into the gritty details of it, but it is technically a sequel to Phasma. So
Okay,
read
I am
Phasma first.
I'm reading Phasma
or
currently.
you'll be spoiled by Black Spire. But one thing, I actually wish that I read Black Spire before I visited Galaxy's Edge, because it is just a love letter to Galaxy's Edge, and I can't speak highly enough to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It is a must visit. I was fortunate enough to go by myself. I called my wife in the middle of Galaxy's Edge and I said, "Listen, I love you. I'm so happy you're not here." That's it. That's just the honest truth to it. And I have a 2-year-old daughter who will absolutely go crazy when she sees all the live action stuff. But I was just able to gush over Galaxy's Edge, and Black Spire brought me right back to that feeling. So do yourself a favor. Outside of the High Republic, which I have up on stream right now, Star Wars: The High Republic, all over that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Black Spire is a wonderful book. Good storyline too. Nice characters in it. So highly recommend there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet. I've heard really good things. And I have my house is booked for the Labor Day week in September. down in Orlando,
Ooh.
and I'm going to be making a visit to Galaxy's Edge, and I can't wait. I have a 3-year-old daughter that I'm looking forward to her, building a droid and all that good stuff. But I even just love the one portion of Force Collector where the main character
Yep.
visits Batu and everything, and just that got me excited in
Oh,
itself.
man.
So
I did it all. I said, where can I spend money? I'm going there. I did the droid. I did the lightsaber experience.
lightsabers. Yeah.
You have to think about how you're getting that thing on the plane. They give you, it does fit in an overhead. Confirmed. TSA website states lightsabers can be brought onto the plane.
Good to know.
Just letting you know. So that's okay, but it does count as a carry-on. So you ain't getting away with 3 things. So just keep that in mind when you're traveling out there. Just a wonderful experience. I think I spent 5 hours by myself. 5 hours just looking around. It was really cool.
I think we need to do a traveling to Galaxy's Edge podcast sometime.
Ooh. On location? I'm in.
On location, absolutely. So,
heck yeah!
If you guys want to join me,
I wasn't thinking that, but yeah,
that week, you're welcome to tag along.
Right.
Cool.
Right. Sweet.
Well, yeah. So if you're looking for a Star Wars book as a place to start in novels, I hope you found something here. The suggestions, Josh and Sean brought their A game here. I think that there's some really great stories for you to jump into. So, any final words here before I hit the end record button?
I just want to thank you, too, for bringing me on into the fold. I think communication and networking between parties on the same side is wonderful, and I'm looking forward to discussing Project Luminous in its intimate detail coming down the line.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us, and hope you find your way back here soon.
For sure. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed it.
I'm just glad you're here. At the end.
Well, that wraps up episode 18 of From a Certain Point of View. Thank you, Sean, for joining us for that novel talk. That was a heck of a fun time. If you guys are out there listening and you haven't checked out Sean's stuff, you really should give him a listen. The podcast is Star Wars by MRC Tech. It's on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's on all the usual places. He's also on Twitter at the MRC Tech, and he does some live streaming. He records his podcasts live, and he does some game streaming as well. You can find that on twitch.tv/MRC Tech. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you're listening to this and haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so. We're on a bunch of different podcatchers, including iTunes. And if you happen to listen on iTunes, make sure you leave us a review. It helps us get out to more people and jump up in the rankings. So if you are on iTunes or even just have iTunes installed on your computer, leave us a review there. We would extremely appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Check out the website from a certain point of view.com. We've had 3 blog posts this week, a canon catch up that I did, and a Project Luminous recap. And then yesterday, we're recording this on Saturday, but Friday we kicked off a brand new series that we're going to be doing, and I imagine that may cross over into the podcast at some point as well. But we kicked off a series that I'm calling Guarding the Light, and the idea behind that is that we want to showcase all of the awesome things that Star Wars fans do, because there's, if you're on Twitter or following some certain pages on Facebook, you might think that the narrative out there is a little different around Star Wars fans. But from my experience, and I know from Josh's personal experience, Star Wars fans are very different from what you hear on those sites. And we want to showcase, we want to showcase the best that Star Wars has to offer and all of the really cool things that fans do. So the other thing about that is that I think we need your help to do all of that. And to learn more about this, definitely hit up the blog post that I put out yesterday. But I want to hear, and I know Josh wants to hear, about all of these things that you see that tell you that Star Wars fans are the best in the world. So you see something out there on the news, or if you see something in your community that's happening, that's the Star Wars type event with Star Wars fans that are doing something to make the world a better place, we want to hear about that, and we want to feature that on the blog. And it could be anything. Like I mentioned, it could be something as simple as someone in Star Wars was really nice to you, and you want to kind of pass that story along, or even some Star Wars fan was out there doing something fun and encouraging other people to have fun and to feel good about themselves. If you're a Star Wars themed creator, podcast, whatever, and you're organizing some kind of charity event, let us know. I'd be happy to feature that on the blog. Yeah, guarding the light. I know Josh is wanting to talk about his experience at Celebration, which was a very positive experience for you.
Yeah, it was. I can't wait to share about that.
Yeah. So yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of positivity, a lot of Star Wars themed, good news, good field stuff out there. So, and we're going to be bringing it all to you. So that's all the website, FromACertainPointOfView.com. We'll also be putting that stuff out. You can guarantee we'll be putting that stuff out on Twitter and Facebook. Twitter is Certain POV Pod, and the Facebook page is From a Certain Point of View. We also have the Discord server, and the links for that will be in the show notes, and it's also on the website. And you can also reach us at email, certainpovpod@gmail.com. And one thing I keep forgetting to add to this whole spiel is that we're also on anchor.fm, which means that if you check out our page on Anchor, you can leave us a voicemail there and we can play it on the show. So if you have any questions, or you want to throw your 2 cents in on a topic that we talked about, leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show for you.
And yes, thank you everybody so much for joining us for this podcast, and we really want to hear from you. So Adam told you how you can interact with us, and until next time, remember that everything we told you today was true.
From a certain point of view.